Hello. Welcome back to Change My Mind in 15 Minutes, where we discuss all the hot takes of the modern days. Today's take, I don't know if I would be able to call it hot. For me, it's lukewarm. Canvas is better than Learning Suite is our take today. We have our guest speakers, Nicholas and Nick, who are BYU students. Zach and I are BYU students, but I'd say they are more serious BYU students than we are. And so they're the experts in the field that actually check on their grades more often, do their homework more often. And so we actually have some real experts in the field to tell us their opinions. I guess to get it started, if the hot take is Canvas is better than Learning Suite, Zach, I'll start with you. Nicholas, we'll move to you after. What is your take? Agree, disagree, strongly agree, neutral? What are you feeling?
Well, as a non-serious BYU student, I don't know, take my opinion with a grain of salt. But my take is that Canvas is better than Learning Suite. Okay. I think for, a vast number of reasons, Canvas is better than Learning Suite. The biggest one for me is that Canvas feels a lot easier to use than Learning Suite. I know Learning Suite is only a BYU thing. Is that correct? Learning Suite only for BYU. Canvas is everywhere. I remember using Canvas in high school, so I feel like I'm just more familiar with Canvas. Maybe that's where my loyalties lie. But I think Canvas overall is just a lot better interface than Learning Suite. It's easier to use, easier to look at, easier to find stuff. But again, that's coming from a non-serious BYU student, so I don't know.
So to move over to an expert in the field then, Nicholas,
Sure.
Tell Zach why he's wrong.
Okay.
Please do.
I wouldn't say he's wrong, but
I would disagree. He's definitely wrong.
All right. Well,
Nick, if you have a strong opinion, you jump in first, please.
Go ahead.
I'm down. I feel like Canvas is just freaking impossible to navigate. There's like so many like particular ways you have to do things. When I try to check my grades, I like to just go to the grades, see what's due, click on it, and I'm able to navigate. I can do that freely with BYU Learning Suite. But with Canvas, it has like a particular way. You have to go through the modules. You have to find what assignment you're trying to do. You have to navigating is freaking impossible. It's just so particular, and it's for me personally, I feel like Learning Suite makes it way more manageable. You can get to anywhere from any link. I feel like when I try to go through a certain way, Canvas will be like, no, don't do it through this way. Do it through modules, and it sets me back every time. It's a pain.
I see. Yeah, my take on this is that Learning Suite is better than Canvas, and a lot of my arguments are actually the same that Zach had. I do think Learning Suite is set up better than Canvas, and it's a lot more simple to navigate. I know with Canvas there's a lot of different tabs for each of the classes, and so those can kind of be hard to navigate and to know where like assignments are or content for classes. But with Learning Suite, it's a lot more simplified. There's just a few tabs, all of the main important ones like for your grades, content, schedule, and it pretty much just dumbs it down for all of us to be able to navigate everything that we need. So
Okay, I see where you're coming from. Before we move on, I want to get Brenton's opinion because it is semi-valid to hear what another non-serious BYU student has to say. But with you two, I am wondering what percentage would you say of your classes uses Learning Suite versus uses Canvas?
That's a good question. I used to be a computer science major, and so when I was doing computer science classes, most of my classes were on Canvas, just because I know Canvas has the ability for I think it's like third-party extensions and stuff like that, and so a lot of my assignments they would auto-grade my code and stuff like that, and so Canvas was the one that I would go to for all of those and to find the content and submit my assignments. But other than that, I've used Learning Suite most of the time for my other classes.
Okay. Val, What about you?
For me, this is my first semester, but currently 80% of my classes are on Learning Suite. So I have a vast majority of them are on Learning Suite, which I am forever grateful for.
Okay.
I am so happy to have that privilege.
I agree.
Yeah.
Feels like a limited sample size. I don't know. Maybe you got to use Canvas more
That's
and you
true,
start
that's
to like
true.
it. I think part of my reasoning comes from if your classes are hybrid, where you're half in class, half online, a lot of those classes are Canvas. That's how a lot of mine are because I'm a non-serious BYU student once again. And so it makes it really easy because Canvas will have all the links to the videos that you need to watch from the professor instead of going to class, right? You'll watch a video. I think that is a lot easier. I've had one class where they did it in Learning Suite, and it was just terrible. Every time the videos don't work, you can't submit anything. You have to go through, again, a third party to get into anything into Learning Suite. So that's where I feel like most of my Canvas reasoning comes from. But I don't know. Do you guys have hybrid classes or like anything online really, or is it all in person?
Yeah, I've had a few online classes,
Okay.
and they've all been on Canvas. And I actually do agree that for those kinds of classes, that Canvas is better, because if they set it up well for the modules, like what you need to get done that week,
Yeah.
I think it's very simple. You just like go to what you have do that week or what you need to view, click on the video, and then you just go to the next page, do the assignment, submit it. And so for that, I do think Canvas is better. So
I think where the difficulty comes in, and for those of us, our viewers that aren't BYU students, you might want to tune off for this video because it won't be very applicable to you. I think the main issue that we run into as BYU students is when it's split, right? It's hard for us to be on those Canvas modules for a couple hours every single day and then remember, oh, I have 2 Learning Suite classes that I have to hop on and see if anything's due for that as well. And so I think more than anything in this podcast, we're hoping to get to a consensus of what we like more, Learning Suite or Canvas, and have that be our petition to BYU that we go full Learning Suite or we go full Canvas. I think we got a lot of strong opinions on the pod today. I would say I'm more in the middle. I'll be a little bit of the mediator.
And take this with a grain of salt. Again, don't.
Because I don't feel super passionate about either. I actually hate technology in general for the most part. I would rather do everything pen and paper. If it was up to me, I loved doing it in elementary school, junior high that way, having my color coordinated notebooks and just running it without doing anything online. What I will say from what I've noticed, just to say pros and cons of, we've heard kind of both sides a little bit. I think it can be a common consensus that Canvas offers more features, but is often a little overcomplicated, right? Learning Suite is simple, but often seems a little outdated. And kind of like Zach was saying earlier, I run into the problem with Learning Suite where I have a couple of classes that are fully online with Learning Suite, and we have to navigate to 3 or 4 different sites to finish an assignment. So you can't even complete the assignment in Learning Suite. You're just running into the issue of, okay, Learning Suite's really simple. I can see what's due. I can see how to do it, but I have to go somewhere else to get it done. Canvas, at least what I like is whether you're in a focus group, a discussion board, doing an assignment, all of that can get done and edited on Canvas, and you can submit it that way. But I do agree that sometimes it gets a little overwhelming seeing all the different tabs that you run into with Canvas. The next thing I wanted to bring up, which is one thing that has bothered me for a long time about Canvas, is I don't think the grading is always accurate. One thing I like a lot about Learning Suite is when I want to know, crap, am I failing a class right now? Or am I going to leave this class with a pass? Am I going to have to hit a withdrawal, which I've run into a couple times, right?
Unfortunately.
I want to be able to log on to a site that tells me, this is your grade, this is why it's this way. And I just feel like most of the time when I go to the grade section in Canvas, either it's not updated or it says this is what your grade would be if everything was graded. I don't want to know what my grade would be. I want to know what my grade is so I can know if I need to go grovel to my teacher and try to get a retake for
Well, and I think that's valid because, again, Learning Suite is just BYU. So I think it's much better. It's integrated much better with BYU because of that fact, right? And so Canvas is not directly linked to like teachers grading. They have to go in separate and put everything into Canvas, which again is kind of the worst.
yeah, I know that with grading, especially with Canvas, or one thing that I do like about the Learning Suite grading is like it breaks it down into the different, like you have like your exams and then assignments and then like other categories, and it tells you right there like what the weight is for your entire grade. And they have it in Canvas just kind of like on the side, and then just like a whole long like running list of all of your assignments. And so it is hard to know like in Canvas which particular assignments are worth how much. And so I think with that, Learning Suite does a better job of helping students with seeing how their assignments are weighted and how it factors into their overall grade.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Learning Suite is just a lot more simpler when it comes to trying to being able to figure out what my grade is. I feel like when I'm on my Canvas class, like I have no clue what's going on with all the what ifs and whatever it is.
Enlightening thoughts. Which, Nick, one thing you said was what if. It made me think of the what if calculator, which I actually do love on Canvas.
I like the what if calculator.
I love, because there's been many nights where I have been up late studying for a test, and you kind of realize you're cooked at one point. You're just like, this test is not going to be an A. It's likely not going to be a B. And so I hit the trusty old reliable what if calculator to see what can I actually get on this test to get the grade I want in the class. We'll be moving on, but I do want to give Canvas a little shout out for the what if calculator.
True.
Love it to death.
That's a real one.
That's big.
Let's move on to opinions of students on BYU campus, because we have our experts here. We've been beating it around for a little while. Let's talk a little bit about what the people are actually saying. And so, like I said, the hot take, in case you are just tuning in, is Canvas is better than Learning Suite. We got 48 responses on a survey, and then I actually went around and interviewed a bunch of people on Canvas, which if you go on our Instagram or TikTok, Change My Mind in 15 Minutes, you can see some of those interviews that we did. It seems like the vast majority of people agreed that Canvas was better than Learning Suite. The people that did said things like they're more familiar with Canvas and it has less issues. They've had teachers set up Canvas really well, and they like the module format of Canvas better than the Learning Suite schedule. Kind of like what we were talking about a little bit. A lot of people are neutral, which I think you and I maybe fall a little bit more into the neutral category. We might have a stronger opinion towards the end of this pod, but they said things like, I don't care. I just wish BYU would pick one, which we were talking about a little bit. Just pick one.
Yeah.
That's
BYU.
what I was going to bring up.
Brigham Young, just pick. And when teachers know how to use it, they agree that it can be set up well on both ends. People that disagreed, there was actually a lot of feedback for that as well, that think Learning Suite's better, because originally I think when we went out and did the interviews, we thought everybody was going to agree Canvas is better than Learning Suite just because it's a little bit more high tech. But we ran into a lot of people that passionately hated Canvas. And some of those thoughts were professors struggle to utilize the tools in Canvas, which I couldn't agree more. I think the majority of professors have no idea how to use technology,
That's
and so
true.
Canvas goes underutilized, which why are we using Canvas if we're not going to utilize the tools that it's providing? A couple other thoughts. Canvas is harder to navigate and less straightforward. Learning Suite is clear and concise and way more organized. Canvas sends me 22 emails a day whenever I do
That's true.
anything,
I don't.
and that pisses me off, was another thought, which,
valid.
true. I don't want to get emails from
I don't.
Canvas. When I'm at home hanging out with my shoddy, or at home just kicking it with the boys, why would I want to see a Canvas notification that says
Right.
my 2-point peer review has been graded?
Yeah.
That should be a 2 out of 2 automatically, and I shouldn't get a think about it. You
I'm
should
sure-
only tell me if an exam is getting put in. Nicholas.
Right. I'm sure there's a way that you can turn off those emails, but that does take effort. So
There is a way.
yeah.
And I know you know how to do that way, but maybe my untech savvy personality is struggling with that
That's
a little
okay.
more.
I think Brenton brought up something, and we had got a couple responses from other students that I want to ask our two experts. Do you see any value in having both Canvas and Learning Suite, or are you strongly in the camp of BYU needs to pick one side? Do you see any value to having both, or is it just a hassle?
For me, I feel like I see some value because if we were to transfer, you'd still be very familiar with Canvas. Whereas Learning Suite, yes, it's easier, and we're pretty familiar with it now. It wouldn't have a whole lot of value in transferring, but if your goal is to stay here at BYU, I think it's way nicer to have that Learning Suite option.
Yeah, that's a tough question. Personally, I want to say that BYU should stick with one just to make it easier for, just for simplicity's sake of having all of your classes in one place. Because I've had a couple of semesters where I've had like one class on Canvas, and so it's just hard to navigate between both. But Canvas does, especially during my time when I was doing computer science, Canvas was what was needed for a lot of the grading for those extensions and whatnot. And so it's a tough choice, but I think I would argue that BYU should just stick with one for simplicity's
It's
sake.
just simpler.
Well, then I guess as a last claim and kind of our last thoughts, and then I'll let Zach wrap it up. BYU, Canvas Learning Suite, we all have our preferences, but we don't care. Just pick one.
Just pick one.
Pick
Just
what
pick
you're
one.
going to do. Stick with it. Make our lives easier. Make the grading process easier. Help us to get A's in your classes, because sometimes, frankly, it feels like our professors and the software that we're given is a little out to get us. But that's kind of the last second thoughts that I have, and I think the consensus that we've come to as a group.
I think absolutely we need to pick a side, Canvas or Learning Suite. I know I came out kind of hot saying I hated Learning Suite. Here's the deal. I don't care. It doesn't really matter to me. I think what I'm more frustrated about is the fact that there is two different ones. If we could decide Canvas or Learning Suite, I think it'd be fine, and then we wouldn't have to have a debate, right? Our non-BYU students right now are probably like, we've been talking for 20 minutes about what? Two different softwares for school? Who cares, right? The problem is on campus at BYU, it actually is a big deal. Like, it's something that's talked about a lot, Canvas and Learning Suite. And so I think we can completely get rid of those debates if we just pick a side. And I honestly can't see anyone being upset either way if we just stick with one. What are our experts' thoughts, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. I guess my last thoughts is that there is definitely value in both, and there are things that both websites do offer for students, and whether it's Canvas for those online classes with the modules, it can make it easy to navigate the course for that semester. But with Learning Suite, it is a lot more simple, and all of your assignments are just right there. The descriptions, the syllabus, it's all there for you to be able to easily look at. So I think there's certainly value in both, and personally, I do think that BYU should stick with one.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. There's definitely pros and cons to both of them, but I think the ultimate thing that needs to happen is we just need to pick one. I don't know why it's so hard to do, but hopefully we'll get to that eventually.
Consensus is we started arguing that Canvas was better than Learning Suite. I think we've all agreed that we honestly don't care, Canvas or Learning Suite. We just need to pick one. This has been Change My Mind in 15 Minutes. We'll see you next week.